Okay, guys, so just another quick video. Got an email from Patron, and they had some concerns about the things that are going on. I'm just going to kind of generically address each one of the points that they brought up because I think that the points that they were concerned about are probably points that many people are concerned about. And so that's why I thought I would just share it with everybody, the response with everybody, and I hope that's okay with the Patron. Um, Okay, so the first thing is that he's concerned with is basically handing over your rights, and following the orders and all that kind of stuff without really questioning it and those kinds of things. And the concern is should we be doing this? And so I got a couple thoughts on that, right? So the first thing is that in order to we have to ask where the first question is: does the Constitution provide any authority to the government to look after the common good? Right? Because that's essentially what the authority that they're operating off of, anyway. And I'd say the answer to that is yes. Right? That's fairly clear that they do have the authority to provide for the common good. And so that is one thing. Okay. But then we have to do some critical analysis. We have to look at the situation, and is it the federal government that are trampling our rights? In this case, mostly no, except for the passing these $1 trillion bills with $1 trillion bailout bills with unanimous consent, and none of the congressmen putting their consent on it or putting their signature on it and saying yes, I vote for it or whatever. But by and large, the majority of the things that have come out of the federal government have been recommendations, unless I'm forgetting something, and maybe I am forgetting something. Now, he has been controlling entry and those kinds of things, but that isn't really affecting citizens. Now, I guess if you wanted to travel to a foreign country and you couldn't go or something, then maybe that would be. But for the most part, it seems like to me what the federal government has been doing is pretty reasonable for the most part. I haven't seen too much that really made me raise an eyebrow, except with the fact of this massive spending. So then that comes down to who is really behind these civil rights violations, and that falls to the state governors, right? And so, obviously, I can't really address each state on here, but you have to take a look at your state and say, have the governors been doing things that's not right? And if that's the case, then local government. It's always better when things happen at local government level, because then you can react and you can put together people and you can start to cause a ruckus about it. That's the whole idea. And so I think that it behooves us to follow what's going on at the state level, because that's where I see the most of these violations going on. And when you see them, we have to call them out. We have to contact our representatives. We have to let them know that it's not okay in a polite and professional manner. And you've got to, where possible, be demonstrating, be doing things to let them know, and all that kind of stuff, and be a part of the solution and getting those things fixed, because there have been some overreaches in this. Now, so I agree that there have been overreaches. There's been multiple crazy examples of things that people have, these governors have gotten away with. We still have to ask the same question, though. Does the state constitution allow for providing for the common good? Give the authority to the government to do that? And in many instances, they do. Now, there might be limits on that. And those limits might be the Bill of Rights for each one of the states, and so forth. So it is incumbent upon us to bring those issues up, raise those issues to light, and make us think about them. The real concern most of these issues that are associated with COVID-19 are temporary. And yes, I do believe that they're temporary, because when the COVID-19 thing goes away, and this is past, and like I think I said from the beginning, 4 to 6 months, it's going to be a hassle. I'm still pretty much sticking to that. I think the economic consequences will be longer lasting, but the virus, I think, I'm hoping 4 to 6 months. And so I believe that a lot of these things are going to be temporary. Now, the other responsibility that we have is to monitor the laws and the bills that are getting passed during this time frame, right? That's extremely important, because we can't allow them to use this crisis to pass draconian and tyrannical types of laws, especially state laws. So that's kind of where I fall on that. Is I think that I don't see too much going on with the federal government on a big scale. And I think that it's important that we watch our state and local representatives, and we're boisterous in our opinions if there are overreaches in our area. So like in our area, I don't have really any complaints with the way that it's been handled here in Wyoming. We have a very conservative state. A lot of people are already upset, but I think it's been reasonable. They've walked the line between allowing people to continue to have freedoms and trying to do what they can to create social distance and stuff without too much drastic impact. Although there definitely will be impact here as well in the economy. So that's kind of where I think we're at. I don't think that we're necessarily handing over our rights, but I think we have to watch them. Okay. And we definitely should question. We should always question our government with boldness, definitely. Okay, so the next thing is essentially the next point gets to the point of, is it real or not? It's kind of the way I read it anyway. I can tell you from my perspective that I don't have any question about whether it's real or not. The whole virus thing is real. There might be some question in the end as to how what the numbers shake out to be as far as the case fatality rates and all those kinds of things. But there is no question that we have a new virus, and that virus is considerably more deadly than the flu. And so that is on top of all the things, the normal cases that we normally have, right? And so it's a real thing. And the thing that from my position with the military, and I'm in a unique position to be able to get to see a lot of the reports and stuff, and a lot of the status updates and sit reps and all that kind of stuff from all over the place, right? We're talking about Interpol, federal DHS and FEMA, state level DHS and FEMA, local police, just a variety of different things. And so the interesting part about all that is that they're all amazingly consistent. And I don't mean that they're the same, like they're pushed out or whatever the case may be, but they all show that they're struggling with this issue, right? They all show that they're trying to find personal protective equipment. They're trying to get masks and different things out to different areas, and they're reporting shortages here, and they need to move assets over here, and those kinds of things. So it's a real thing. Like all these different agencies and that kind of stuff are actively working this issue, and so to me, there's really no risk whatsoever that it's fake, or that it's not happening, or that it's a hoax, or anything like that. It is something that we should take seriously, and it's killing people. I have a very close friend of mine, who had a friend die of this, and the guy was 45 years old, no other health issues, and he's dead. So. And it sucks because it's a bad situation, because you can't go to the funerals and all this stuff, and it's crappy, man. And a lot of people are being impacted by this. As we speak, I think we're about 45,000 deaths already. We've only been into it for 6 weeks, right? And the whole thing, I'll just go into this real quick. It wasn't really addressed on his thing, but the whole thing about overinflating the numbers and all that kind of stuff, that's nonsense, okay? Anytime that a person with pre-existing conditions, let's say you have a heart issue, okay, and you come into the hospital and you have COVID-19, but you also have this underlying heart issue. Well, if you end up dying because of COVID-19, because that COVID-19 exacerbated the heart issue, then it's perfectly normal for them to say that it was a COVID-19 related death. All right, that happens with flu and stuff all the time, with people with COPD and other kinds of lung diseases and all that kind of stuff. They get the flu or they get the pneumonia or whatever, and then they categorize it that same way. And there's no chance, there's literally no chance, in my opinion, that you are going to convince, hundreds of thousands of doctors, or however many thousands of doctors or whatever, to falsify records, because that's fraud. It's literally fraud, and they could go to jail for it. And so I can assure you that these doctors are not going to put all their practice and everything online to fraudulently fill out a bunch of death certificates, and the medical examiners and all this kind of stuff doing that. And that's just partisan politics and all that kind of stuff. It's just people trying to feed into this, this whole frenzy that's going on, this fighting for attention, for clicks, and everybody wants people to come look at their thing and all that kind of stuff. And that's just not reality. So that's that. That point was that it's a real situation, and it should be concerned. You should be concerned with it. I don't think that you need to be overly paranoid, though. And so that's kind of goes into the next one. So the next one talks about, should we be going about doing, outdoor activities and those kind of things? And if so, do we need to strap an AR on our back and go out and cut the grass or do whatever the case may be? And I think a lot of that really depends on the area that you live in, right? Where I'm at, out here, no, I don't have any reason to do that. But I'm always armed. I'm always with a concealed carry pistol. Pretty much any time I leave my house, for the most part, I'm armed. And do I need to be? I don't know. Not necessarily. I mean, I just think it's smart, to be armed. So I'm pretty much always armed, but I'm not carrying an AR. I don't think we're to that point yet. Now, if you lived in a place where you've seen a drastic increase in home break-ins and assaults and muggings and robberies and all those kinds of things, then maybe that is appropriate for you. I don't know. You're just going to have to judge that, for yourself. But I don't think we need to go overboard necessarily. In the vast majority of situations, just having a concealed carry pistol is probably going to be fine. And I just carry a shield. I don't carry a high capacity stuff. I'm not, that tweaked up about it right now. I do think that we do need to step up home security. I've talked about that in, several of the lessons. And those lessons are primarily focused at those folks who live in the suburban and urban areas where, if money stops flowing to the benefits system and stuff like that, then things could get a little bit crazy, And so you do need to take your home security seriously. But I don't know that we're having to the point where we're having to get ARs and those kind of things yet. Okay, so the next one is okay. So then the last one is talking about cell phone tracking and government monitoring of cell phones and stuff like that. So this is just the perspective that I'll put out there on that, and that is that telephone companies have been monitoring your travel since the very beginning of cell phone use, day one, literally, as far back as I'm aware. They have always had location data on cell phones, and they use that for a variety of different reasons. So you've always been being tracked for literally 20 years or however long we've been, commonly using cell phones. And mostly it's used for figuring out where tower placements need to be and all that kind of stuff. And they triangulate usage, and that way they know how much bandwidth they need to have in certain areas and all this kind of stuff. And so what's happening right now is that the telephone companies and different tech companies and stuff like that, Google, Android, and Apple, whatever, they provide location data to state and probably federal governments, but it is in bulk. Okay, it's so that the governments, the state governments can look at certain areas and say, hey, we need to do more targeted messaging in this area about social distancing, or we need to step up police presence a little bit to get people to disperse crowds, or whatever the case may be, because we're trying to, enforce this whole social distance thing. So if you want to leave your cell phone at home so that you're not being tracked, sure, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. But the government doesn't have the bodies to physically track any individual person. And if they get anything more than mass metadata, which is what they're talking about, then they have to get a warrant for that. Okay, and I know this is factual, all right, because I work in the government system in law enforcement, and if I am looking at somebody, if I'm investigating somebody, I have to go and I have to get a warrant. Okay, I can't just get any kind of content of anything substantive, anything beyond metadata, without getting a warrant. All right, so you really don't have to worry about them, anybody in the government specifically looking at you. If somebody in the government is looking at you, it's because they believe that you have committed a threat, you've committed a terroristic threat, or you're committing a crime of some sort or another, or something along those lines. And the reason I know that is because they just don't have the bodies. They don't have the bodies to just randomly, go out and target people. There's just not that many law enforcement officers. And beyond that, most law enforcement officers would never go for that anyway. They're not going to just randomly select people. So I have seen some abuses in some of these liberal states. I've seen some cops doing stuff that I think's wrong. And, I would always call that out when I see it. And I think that, but the vast majority of law enforcement officers that I know of and that I have met throughout a 20-year career are all, for the vast majority of them, are all patriots. They're all pro-Second Amendment. They're all pro your Bill of Rights, and they're not going to intentionally trample, on people's rights and stuff. Again, there are anecdotal situations where that's happened, but by and large, the vast majority of them aren't. So I don't really think that that the whole cell phone monitoring is an issue. It's essentially just the cell phone companies providing data to the government so that they can figure these things out. That's what it is. And they've had this data forever. So, I really don't really see it as being too problematic. And hopefully that gives you some insight. I don't know if this provides any answers or not. If you guys want me to continue to do videos like this, then let me know if you like them. It's just my opinion. It's not research necessarily. It's not, anything more than just my perspective, based off of the time that I've spent, working, and behind the curtain, I guess, kind of, so to speak, and kind of knowing how things work. But I'll always be honest with you guys and try to be as straightforward as I can, and try to provide a little bit of context, and hopefully it's helpful. I don't know. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments.